very pertinent question. Why spiritual, at the workplace is very, very important? What are some of the constructs that that made you to bring this as a topic into the corporate world, right? We've been doing our own inner journeys, spiritual journeys, most often, confused with religion and spiritual, right? But why corporate there, right? If you can just elaborate a little bit and tell us what made you choose this subject and what are some of the constructs there.
So there are a lot of questions. I'll answer each one by one. So one is why spirituality at workplace. Now, over my stint in the corporate and all that we see around in the society, I realized that all of us who are working at some workplace or the other, we are at permanent whitewaters, wherein what is happening is we are constantly saving our jobs, and we don't know what is next in the store just the next day also. So it hampers us from giving our 100% at work. We work with a checklist mentality. We work only for money. We don't go beyond call of duty. That mostly happens with most people working. And on the other hand, the employer, that's the the organization, has this hindrance of do I really need to invest in the employees? Do I really need to nurture the employees? Do I need to give that training which is very expensive? So the cost to the company, is it really valuable? Tomorrow the person can tomorrow I can have his or her resignation. I mean, do I really invest in so much? So in this permanent white waters, the psychological contract is totally broken. So like any form of relationship, the relationship between the employer and the employee, when the psychological contract is broken, then it's leading to nowhere. Neither the employees are benefiting nor the employer is benefiting. And every other day we see organizations closing down, or suddenly you realize, oh, we are in the losses, and there are thousands of pink slips being given. So it doesn't happen overnight. What has actually happened is the people who had to give heads up at the right time, they did not give, thinking that why should I give? I mean, I'm getting my salary, and if I know that the company is in the losses, I have another job. So with all of this, I realized there's a need for change, because all of these people who work with this kind of a mindset for around 10 hours at workplace and come back home, they're highly unsatisfied. They bring that unsatisfaction at home and then at society at large. And then now, why spirituality? So when we say workplace spirituality, we are not saying people to follow any kind of religious sect or a guru, or any kind of meditation or yoga. So mostly when people implement spirituality at workplace, they end up doing yoga, meditation, or festivals per se. So we are not saying all of that. We are we are talking here about only 4 sub-dimensions of the construct of workplace spirituality that we came up with, which is 1, finding meaning in life through work. Second is having connectedness at work. We can elaborate that all of these later. Third being your values and organizational values matching, and 4th being having compassion at work. So the entire construct of workplace spirituality stands on these 4 dimensions. So that was, I hope I have kind of answered your question.
Excellent. Yeah. To quote Basavanna, Kaya Keve Kailasa, which loosely translates to, heaven at work, or finding heaven in work, right? That or our work is worship, which we've. But if you actually translate and break that down to day-to-day rigor, day-to-day busyness of that life, somewhere there is a hollow in the employees, and we quite often find that when tasks are repeated and it is a sustaining activity, the thrill, the joy of work is wrong. How can spirituality bring that change, right? And then that adding meaning, bringing a smile to the employee. And actually, if we look at it, if you break down 24 hours, the 3 parts, 8 hours is where roughly, if I don't believe Dr. Murthy saying 70 hours a week, let's keep that aside, right? If you look at it, 8 to 10 hours roughly is your waking hours. You're spending in office, you're spending working, right? How can I bring joy? What does spirituality add to this dimension?
So the entire workplace started with the industrial era, wherein the employees were considered as an extension of machines. And then came the Heartfelt studies, which said that the employees are emotional beings. Then came the Japanese quality revolution, which said that the employees are thinking beings. So the human coming at workplace has been evolving every 20-30 years. So it's since past couple of decades there has been research which says that the employee is a spiritual being. There's a spirit in the employee which needs to get engaged. And when that spirit is engaged, that's the highest form of engagement you can have. You can have lean HRM using that. The employee's potential is fully realized. The employee is happy at work. The employee is giving his or her not just 100% at work, but in totality to the culture, is adhering to the organizational culture, because his values and organizational values are not in conflict. That is where, when there is this conflict of what the employee thinks is right and wrong and what the organization thinks is right and wrong, that is where the dilemma starts, and the person is not happy at work because the person is going beyond it, going against his or her own value system, only for money. So where does this lead to? So what we are saying is, if we have to implement workplace spirituality, it starts right from when you are, recruiting employees. You test over there only on certain parameters, which we have described in the book, and we have scales to measure the same. So you formulate the scale as per the organization. You measure there. And then it goes on to the induction and the performance management system, wherein we are not saying that you do away with your balanced scorecard. There has to be one more dimension added.
We hear a lot of great places to work, my kind of place to work, this is the place to work, whole lot of branding stuff that goes on and on and on, right? And we have the top numbers, we have X, Y, Z. In all this, when uncertainty hits, as in the current scenarios, we find a lot of gaps in terms of the branded value and the actual translation to day-to-day lives of employees. How can spirituality address those aspects of dimensions in the organization's day-to-day running, right? Where meaning is not lost, and then we sustain a game-changing way of work and life where there is meaning.
So, like Sir asked, we are, all sailing in uncertainties, and the day-to-day life of the employees is something, where the meaning in life is lacking. So these are two questions. I'll answer one by one. So one is about uncertainty. Yes, we live in VUCA world. We don't know who's planning what, and the kind of connections that we have right now, the kind of the globalization obviously we are in, and we don't know which competitor is planning what, and who's buying our shares and all those things. So if there is an uncertainty, and what workplace spirituality says is, yes, uncertainty exists, but it depends on how the organization plans to react to it. It yes can happen that suddenly we realize that the business has gone into total losses and we need to give the pink slips. It is a reality, and that is something that the organizations do and many a times have to do. But how do you do it is important. Are you just sending a very stonic mail saying that from tomorrow your mails are stopped and you cannot come? Or does the leadership team acknowledges that yes, there is a crisis, goes upfront and says that yes, there is a crisis, I'm sorry, and we can't take it ahead. So at least the soul of the employee is not wounded. His psychological contract with the employer has not broken. They understand that we are all in the same boat. And how do people find meaning and meaning at workplace? So when the employee is working, is working for the cause that the organization, that the person actually feels for, and his personality has been studied well, and his likes and dislikes have been studied well, and then the person has been, his goals in life have been studied well, and then the person is recruited. Then what happens is the person is finding meaning in life through work. So when he's coming to work, he's not coming to work just, I'm coming to work and that will feed my family. Yes, of course it will feed the family. But the person coming to work comes his or her full creativity, comes with full intellect, and comes and doesn't shies away from going beyond call of duty.
I think another important question that I would want to explore is spirituality is great. How do we go about implementing those in an organization with diverse cultures, geographical spreads? The meaning, context, products, services changes dramatically, right? As we all know, in India, every 100 kilometers, things change dramatically, right? So, how do you bring about uniformity at the same time, contextualize the realities there, and still inculcate a feeling of oneness, meaning? What are some of the dimensions that you've explored in the book, and then how does that align to the realities today?
Implement workplace spirituality as a culture, as an organizational development intervention rather. We don't take it off the shelf like most of the HR initiatives which we just take off the shelf. No. So the 4 pillars that I spoke about, I'll elaborate that more. So we keep those 4 pillars as a base, and the first thing that we do is we bounce it with the higher ups in the management, and we discuss and formulate a measurement scale pertaining to that particular sector, or that particular, we can boil down to that particular company also. Currently in research we study the IT sector. So there is a scale which is already existing for the IT sector which can be taken off shelf. We have tested its reliability and validity, and we have done its pilot, and it does give results. So if we have to go for a manufacturing sector, so in the manufacturing sector, supposingly we take any XYZ organization, what we would do is we would first explain this concept, and then we will have open-ended interviews with the leadership team, and we will have a key statement and keyword analysis of the interviews. We'll come up with the themes of what is their understanding and what is their vision and how much is it aligning to our concept. And from that we will have definitions of those sub-themes, and then we'll come up with the competency framework pertaining to that organization, and on the basis of that competency frameworks we will have scales, and that will measure the organization. But it doesn't stop with just having scales. We will also have to have champions across levels which promote a certain kind of culture on those 4 pillars. So if I have to elaborate the 4 pillars, the first one is finding meaning in life through work, wherein like I said already, the employee coming to workplace with a higher goal in life, and that his goal is matching with the organization's goal. So that is finding meaning in life through work. Then having compassion at work, wherein how are you being treated at workplace. So most people go back after work or really want to just open the door and go. I mean, that's the reality most of the times, because the camaraderie and the kind of having family at workplace, whom you can trust.
Excellent. I think another interesting thread that I want to pick on was the most fundamental questions. A business wants to know what's the ROI, right? So that's it. I mean, what is the ROI of this?
So, like I already said, the return on investment is something that we will come to know obviously when we measure it after a year's time. So there has to be, there will be some low-hanging fruits in terms of cultural intervention which can be seen in a week's time, in 15 days' time. Then the balance sheet can be seen in 6 months' time, and then again in a year.
One is the 70 hours probably would remain roughly around the same number, but you would start loving that.
No, we would not encourage that. We would say the 70 hours of working, I am only a researcher. The person who has spoken about 70 hours of working is a big name. But then, somewhere down the line, we have to find a mid path, wherein if we are working 70 hours a day, are we able to maintain that productivity? We need to study that. Is it really humanly possible? Because if we go to there are countries wherein people work 8 hours a day and still the organization is profitable. So it is about how much you are giving at workplace, or the kind of culture. So that is why we say workplace spirituality is an OD intervention wherein we are hitting the culture, and that is a lot necessary in the Indian context per se, especially when we have leadership teams saying these things on the press. So yes.
Thanks, Anshul. I think we'll have the fishbowl going around and take some questions from the audience.
How acceptable do you think spirituality would be to, when you approach a corporate? I mean, how open do you think they are to make that change for the workplace and for their employees?
Implementing any form of the spirituality which is currently existing in form of any kind of a guru, caste or sect or anything. So herein we are plainly talking about the four constructs that, four dimensions of the construct that I spoke about, which we have found as the need of the hour. We are all struggling, all the companies are struggling, and they are trying to find answers. What next? Because everything in the book is getting implemented, and still we find that, okay, we are still in permanent white waters. So what do we do next? So maybe this book is the answer, maybe this construct is the answer. So that is what we are saying.
Both had. The question pertains to startup culture. So see, this entire research that you have done is in the IT field. There are a lot of startups which are mushrooming right now in India. But startups have their discovery. The initial phase is the discovery, where they discover their own values, how the culture will be for the organization. So how difficult it is for the organization as well as an employee to have an ideal workplace in a startup ecosystem.
So another question that I expect to come up is when the organization is going into losses. So I'll answer both. So when the organization is starting off, that is a golden opportunity rather for the organization to imbibe the right kind of culture. For organizations who are already established, it will take maybe 2 or 3 years to implement workplace spirituality. That is what we see. But for a startup, they can do it from day one. The leadership team can start from day one because it's very new, the systems and processes are not in place, and it is very easy to incorporate this construct in the systems and processes for the organization. So for the startups, it is highly recommended. So if startups start imbibing this kind of a culture, it will really have a ripple effect because startups become big companies later. So that is what we mostly see in Bangalore.
Thank you, Dr. Anshul.
Thank you for launching at our mall and all of your favorite mall. My question is, when is your next book coming?
Okay, so yes, it is in pipeline. So that will be more of about the quantity. So this is the conceptual. This book is conceptual understanding. The next book will be about the practical implications in terms of numbers, in terms of scales, the measurement scales, how it can be developed. And when the next book is out, maybe you can take it off shelf. Maybe you might not require intervention of a person like me. So you can just read through it and implement it in your organization. So it's in pipeline, maybe 6 months down the line.
Right.
And your second question about the family support, that's my husband. He's Mr. Ankur Nogaria. So he has been my backbone and all bones rather. So you go on researching, you have queries, you have questions, and your family is the first person who knows anything and everything that you're doing, thinking, and I'm very lucky that they never called me crazy of doing all this. So yeah, I would take this opportunity to thank him, and my parents are not here, they stay in Mumbai, so I really thank them also. And we have an extended family here, my maternal uncle and aunt, Mr. Rajat Gupta and Niti Gupta. They also have been pillar of strength. So thank you, yeah.
One question is how much time does it take to incorporate or integrate this? And like usually incorporate, right? They ask the metrics. How do we realize the metrics? How sooner?
So if the company is already established, supposingly we have to implement it in X company which has been through decades or maybe 30-40 years. Because it has sustained, obviously there will be many things that the organization would have been doing right. So, but if we have to have an OD intervention there, it will take at least 2-3 years. But for a startup, we can achieve results in 6 to 8 months. So yes.
Okay, so coming from the business context myself, and I run a small consulting firm where the average age is actually 20, and I work with not just millennials but Gen Zs, and their idea of spirituality is probably a documentary they saw on Netflix, and they have absolutely no idea what do you mean by spirituality, right? How do you go about implementing something like this? And I mean, because I feel that as a startup, it's very, very pertinent, and I really love the concept. Please, would love to have your voice.
So that is what we over the years when we were doing research, we found that this concept which we come up with has to be thoroughly inclusive. Not just with millennials, Gen Z, even X, Y, Z, whichever generation comes next. So herein we are, when we are keeping it totally rational. The 4 pillars which we speak of: finding meaning in life through work, having connectedness at work, your values, organization values matching, and having compassion at work. These are totally inert sub-dimensions which we came up with. Which even if they have a different mindset of what spirituality is about, they can just leave it. I mean, and still the culture can be implemented, and you can still call it workplace spirituality, and still no one is offended by it, no one has repulsion to it, and no one questions why we are doing it.
Much for your time. It's been lovely. And Dr. Gupta, any last words?
And asking all these questions. The only thing that I can say as a conclusive statement is we did come up with this particular concept after so many years of research, but like research says that it always stands on the shoulders of other researchers. So that, we don't say that we have reached the climax. There is still scope for further research, yes, but there is somewhere that where we have reached, and let's give it a chance and opportunity, and let's see if it just makes a positive change.